Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to my channel. Before we begin a newspaper, I like to do a little intro. Today's intro is about 1800s courtship. When you found a man or woman that you liked, it was hard to get away on your own, away from the crowds. The best place to be alone with your sweetheart was to take her on a rowboat. Then you could find some secluded cove to perhaps hold her hand. Tell her how much you like her. And perhaps find a spot away from prying eyes and steal a kiss. If you stay tuned to the end of this video, you will see a very charming movie called Kiss Me Now. Now it's time for us to grab our paper from our paper boy and read a newspaper together. We will be reading the Portsmouth Journal from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, dated March 18th, 1871. Don't tell Betsy Jane. And for your life, don't tell Betsy Jane. Mr. Nicodemus Harding, having uttered this caution in a low, earnest tone of voice, alighted from a Concord wagon in front of his own farmhouse door, and stood there a few moments in a brown study, watching the figure of his brother-in-law and the lawyer as he drove back toward the village of W., whence the two men had just come. Don't tell Betsy Jane. Now Betsy Jane was Mr. Nicodemus Harding's wife, a stirring, noble soul who made more butter and cheese and took more eggs and fowl to the market in the course of the season than any other woman for miles around. Strong, healthy and hearty, she made the housework fly, to use her own energetic expression. And if Nicodemus Harding owned his farm that day and was well-to-do, in fact a rich man to boot, it was owing in no small measure to the skill and energy and general go-aheadedness of his Betsy Jane. What was it, then, that her ungrateful man was not about to tell her? It would never do, never, thought Nicodemus to himself, shaking his head. She'll be wanting a new carpet, or a new silk gown, or the house all painted over, or some such nonsense. No, the woman is the weaker vessel. It won't do to trust one too far. Their heads won't bear it. So Mr. Nicodemus passed through the house and out toward the barn with the preoccupied air of a hen who has an egg to lay, and don't know where she can hide it from the eyes of mankind to the best advantage. The kitchen was empty and silent as he went through it, but oh, if he could have seen the buxom, good-looking female who stole silently out of the pantry and as silently followed him on his way towards the barn. Mrs. Harding came back in about 20 minutes or so, with a face red from suppressed laughter. "Don't tell Betsy Jane," she said, giggling into her gingham apron. "You are a very smart man, Nicodemus. Don't tell Betsy Jane, indeed." Couple of weeks later, Nicodemus again returned home, again looking quite as important as before. He tiptoed along through the kitchen. Betsy Jane watched him from the corner of her eye. He passed out to the shed. A fragrant smell of smoke came forward to greet him, an odor of burning corn cobs gradually curing ham. "Ah!" Nicodemus turned deathly pale and ran frantically forward to a large fire smoldering in the ash house. Betsy Jane came outside, only to find Nicodemus groveling before the ash house door, weeping and wailing and tearing his hair and uttering yell after yell of despair. "Woman, you've ruined me. $12,000 in government bonds did I put in that ash hole for safety just a week ago, and you've gone and burned them to cook that cussed bacon. Piss on, and let me get out of the dreary world." "Oh, so that was what you were not going to tell Betsy Jane. Aren't you ashamed of yourself, Nicodemus Harding?" Nicodemus could not answer. He laid prostrate in the ashes and howled. "Get up and don't be a fool," said Betsy Jane. "I heard you and Brother Tim conspiring at the door that day, and I watched you go out to the ash hole and soon found out what you had hid there. Woman is the weaker vessel, no doubt, but she don't put $12,000 where a first match that comes handy can burn it up. Here are the bonds, Nicodemus, for $10,000. I've kept 2 for my honesty." Poor Nicodemus. He gathered himself up out of the ashes and took his bonds, what was left of them. He rather thinks it pays best, on the whole now, to tell Betsy Jane. A wedding abruptly ended. At a wedding in the primitive Methodist chapel in Leominster, the minister proceeded until he came to the place for the reverend gentleman to ask if there were any persons present who knew any cause of impediment, when the bridegroom arose. The groom said that 6 months ago he had asked the lady to release him. When the bride was asked whether she would take this man to be her husband, she replied most emphatically, "No, I will not," which caused intense excitement in the chapel. This, of course, brought the service to an abrupt termination. The bride immediately left the chapel, and the bridegroom drove away, followed by an immense number of persons who cheered him most heartily. A good offer to the ladies of Portsmouth and vicinity. E.A. Joy has fitted up a spacious and elegant sewing machine room directly over his music store and employs a competent lady to take charge of the same. A cordial invitation is hereby extended to all the ladies to bring in lots of work and learn to make it up on the new machines. Come as often as you like and stay as long as you please. What's in a name? Well, a great deal oftentimes. And at any rate, nobody likes to be called nicknames. The satisfactory naming of a baby is sometimes as difficult, if not as troublesome, as its teething, and the successful christening of a ship is no small affair. For instance, take the new ship Jean Ingelow, whose name was selected after much thought and examination. Now this noble craft, when purchased, was ornamented with a female figurehead, and of course must have a corresponding name. So Jean Ingelow was decided upon, and most happily so, all agree, for no poet has sung of the sea more sweetly than she, the gifted writer and true woman. Around home. A lady, a stranger, was seen on Congress Street a few days since, who wore a paper skirt. We see them advertised in some of the papers at 20 cents apiece, and warranted to be of great texture. The road between this city and Cape Nedrick is in a wretched state of muddiness, nearly 3 feet deep in some places, but Farwell is equal to any emergency riding his bus.